Good afternoon and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon White 2. To start us off today, we are going to get a little tutorial on how to catch a Pokemon, which doesn't change from one game to another. Well, there are a few minor details that change, but nothing that's actually explained in depth in the game itself. And I'm sort of wondering, seeing that, if there's no chance whatsoever for that Lillipup to get a critical and totally break the tutorial itself. I think there's a safeguard against tutorials, which just makes me wonder why they didn't have such a thing in place at Pokestar Studios, but we're going to get to that much later in this Let's Play. Anyway, it's the same as usual. Weaken the Pokemon by lowering its HP, inflicting status like sleep, or freeze, or paralysis is also good. Sleep is good if you can accept the fact that you have to re-inflict the status every few turns. Otherwise, paralysis, even though it's overall less effective, will be more for you. Of course, burn and poison also increase the catch rate, but it also gives you a time limit because the opponent is going to die in a matter of turns, unless it's got a Magic Guard or something like that, of course, but that's the exception to an almost absolute rule. So, we are now left to our own devices, but before moving on, I'm going to show you the town map that we got last time. It's right here, and as you can see, lots of new areas in this game. The map is, quite frankly, almost completely unrecognizable since there are so many areas. I'm just going to look back in Aspertia to see if I can enter the trainer's school at all at this point. I don't think so. Nope, it's not over there. I don't think you can, but I'm just going to check. Yeah, this guy's blocking the way. I wish the trainer's school would hurry up and open. So, even though we have a gym right in our starting town, we can't go in it yet. We have to travel a bit and make our Pokemon stronger. Because, well, in our current state, we would probably get raffle stomped by the first underling in the gym, which isn't good. So, this is Route 19. A few wild Pokemon to be found here. No trainers, though. The Pokemon you can find here are Patrat and Purloin, as opposed to Patrat and Lillipup from the first game. So we go back to a more Hoenn-like scheme of having a normal type and a dark type available. And, you know what? I'm not even going to bother this time. So, Tepig just learned Ember, which is good. So I am going to just reorganize my moves so Ember is on top. Once again, it's one of these things that I like to do in Pokemon, just organize my moves in a certain way. So, trainer tips: make an effort to talk to all the people you meet. And yeah, you can get advice, you can get items, there's really nothing bad that can come out of you talking to an NPC. So, for the time being, we get a bit of basic advice on if you don't want to fight wild Pokemon, avoid the tall grass, which is easier said than done because sometimes you're forced to go through it. So, this guy here is going to teach us about ledge jumping, and he's going to give an example and hopefully fall on his ass, even though it's not going to happen. A guy can always hope. So that's how you do it. These are usually one-way shortcuts. Of course, you cannot climb them up, even though I wish there would be a way to do so in future games, maybe. If not as an HM, as a... I don't know how it could be implemented, of course. It would have to be there would have to be a safeguard when it comes to using it right off the bat. And you may be wondering why I didn't follow suit and went to talk to him to see if he had any more dialogue for me. It's because, well, I only had encountered one wild Pokemon on this route before meeting that Purloin, and I really want to get some good experience in. And look at that! We run into a familiar face. Well, not to our character, but we know who he is. He is Alder, the former Pokemon League champion of Unova. And yes, I said former. And for those of you who haven't played the game, that doesn't mean that our character from the first game has been acknowledged as the champion and we're going to fight him later on. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Instead, it's an entirely different character. We all know who it is by now, but it was definitely a surprise when for most of us when we first learned about who it was. Anyway, Alder wants to give us a little bit of coaching, because apparently he recognized me as Jeff from Aspertia City just by looking at me, which is kind of creepy in a way. But before following Alder, we're just going to have a look at the local Pokemon Center, read the help on the PC. I feel I became smarter. Well, if this isn't your first Pokemon game and you still can learn something from that help option, then becoming smarter is a huge task indeed, because I'm not even going to bother showing it to you. It's all things that a Pokemon veteran, and even a Pokemon, well, not necessarily a newbie, but someone who's played a bit of Pokemon before should already know. So, yes, they are well, because I just entered the Pokemon Center. My house is just a little farther, so then, I already did! Didn't you see me go into the building to begin with? Now, before following Alder, we're just going to check out this town, which is called Flockisi, Foqueezy. Fuck this shit! I'm going to pronounce it my own way. I'm going to pronounce this place Bobtown. And since we're pretty early in the game, Bobites are telling us things that are either completely pointless or that are very much the basics of the game. We had someone outside tell us basically to save regularly, a little bit of fourth wall breaking there, which is kind of necessary when you have a game function that really doesn't translate well in the game world. And yeah, having a lot of items really doesn't weigh me down, because that's the power of Palkia brand bags. Carry as many items as you want. You can have 999 copies of every item in the game, and you'll still run as fast as if you had absolutely nothing. Man, I'm so glad they got rid of those stupid restrictions on item storage in Generation 4. Probably one of the best things that particular generation did. So, yeah, this one here. I think we were all like that when we first started playing Pokemon. We all relied on one Pokemon to try and win the game. I personally used Nidoking, and without really knowing it, I actually picked one of the best ones for the job. If you want to do a solo run in Generation 1, Nidoking isn't a half-bad choice. Of course, I've matured a lot as a Pokemon player since then, so I sort of look down on back when I only used like one Pokemon to try and beat the game. So, we're not getting interesting out of this one. So, let's see. Are you happy you're able to train Pokemon? I think we can try out both, so let's start out with yes. Well, that was pointless, so I pressed down! Yeah, I pressed down again, and it's just not working. Okay, here we go. Wow, that was horrible. I was pressing down, and it just wouldn't work. I'm gonna have to, take a look after this is over in case the key's malfunctioning or something. But anyway, so yeah, I guess not every NPC has to say something interesting, but because otherwise, if you removed all the NPCs that say pointless things, then you would have a pretty depopulated world. So yeah, very useful tip for beginners is that the first Pokemon at the top of your Pokemon list is always going to be your lead whenever you start a battle, so you can alter your lead to give you an advantage, and if you forget to do so, then you might end up at a disadvantage. So, how did he notice that I was holding 2 town maps? Did he look at my bag or something? And how did he guess that? I mean, I suppose I could have told him through my powers of muteness, but I shouldn't say anything, because I've given up on trying to understand how mute video game characters could communicate a long time ago. But anyway, apparently he's not going to give us any coaching until we've given Hugh his town map, which is unfortunate because that coaching could be fairly useful in getting to Hugh, and we're going to have to fight him as well, so we're going to be missing out on some precious experience we could use for that. So, heading out onto Route 20. Man, Bobtown really was small. If Aspertia City was pretty big for a starting town, Bobtown is the opposite. Now that item that you saw up there, that was sort of like on a hill in the middle of a hole, the way it works is that you have to wait until fall in order to be able to get that item, because leaves fall in the hole, filling it, and you can walk on the leaves and make your way to the item. And unfortunately, this is spring. So basically, this is a sort of an extension of what we saw in White 1, where we could climb up snow slopes to get to previously inaccessible areas. There are a lot more variants of that in this game than there were in the first one, so we're going to be taking a good look at that as we go over all that. So, Route 20, I guess I should mention, lots of areas that we cannot access right now. We're going to need surf, we're going to need waterfall, we're going to need a whole lot of stuff to be able to fully explore this place. So, for now, I'm just, fighting trainers. Same rules as usual apply. Whenever a trainer sees you, you're going to have to fight him or her, which is always a good idea because trainers' Pokemon give you 50% more experience than a wild Pokemon of the same level and species. Anyway, last time I was talking about how it was sort of weird to have 2 free healing spots in Aspertia City, those being your mom's house as well as the Pokemon Center, but at least they did it right, and in that they both do the same thing and that they're both free. We don't have any crazy shenanigans in terms of cost. Like, best example I can think of, Asgard in Tales of Symphonia. That place has 3 inns. One that charges 200 gold, another one that charges 300 gold, and another one that charges 400 gold. Now the question is, why would you go anywhere but the one that charges 200? Well, the answer is simple. Because there's a House of Salvation right outside of town that only charges 100. I mean, sure, I know the place is supposed to be a tourist trap, but this is kind of ridiculous. And moving on to something else, while we're burning all those trainers' Pokemon to the ground, I should mention that if your stab move, such as Ember or Water Gun or Vine Whip, is not very effective, Tackle is still a much better alternative in this generation than in the previous ones, because its power was boosted to 50 in Generation 5. This is something that I was surprised to find out that a lot of people didn't even know when I talked about it in my last Let's Play. Anyway, this hiker just isn't going to let us past this point because we're just not strong enough to continue or other such garbage. So I'm just going to check up there, and yeah, that looked suspicious, alright. So there was a Pokeball in there. So next time on Let's Play Pokemon Y2, we are going to head to this new area, Bob Ranch. Meet lots of Pokemon. That slogan is right, and I'm going to show you just that next time.